Munich. In the eyes of the world, it is the epitome of German prosperity. A city that blends classic and modern architecture in stunning harmony. A place where the world's largest beer festival, Oktoberfest, is greeted with broad smiles and laughter that echoes around every street corner. Here, BMW engines are precisely engineered, and renowned universities produce great minds that fill the world of global academia and industry. Every year, millions of people flock to Munich. They seek the beauty, order, and peace that is typical of Central Europe. From its manicured city parks to its near-perfect transportation system, Munich appears like a dream come true, a city ideal for the 21st century. But as light casts shadows, the opulence and order that appear on the surface do not always reflect the full reality. Beneath the splendor and impeccable international reputation, Munich hides another side. A side that is rarely touched on in the tourist brochures. A side that is hidden behind old walls and quiet alleys. This is the story of Munich as rarely seen. A city shaped not only by beauty, but also by historical wounds, social inequality, and conflicts that continue to echo, albeit in silence. Because to fully understand a city, we must dare to see it, not only in its light, but also in its shadow. In a city as rich and orderly as Munich, the existence of homeless people seems to contradict the image built over decades. But the reality cannot be hidden for long. Behind the windows of luxury boutiques and charming classical architecture, many people live without a roof, without a place to call home. They sleep on park benches, under bridges, or in train stations that are never really empty. Thin blankets and used cardboard boxes provide protection from the cold Bavarian night. Most people just pass by, not caring, not looking back. Because in a society that worships productivity, those who fall are considered failures. And failure does not deserve sympathy. Surprisingly, not all homeless people are addicts or unemployed as the stereotype has long attached. Many of them used to have steady jobs, had families, even were educated. One divorce, one job loss, one untreated illness. That's what the system needs to push them out of normal life. In Munich, skyrocketing rents and a lack of social housing have created a deep chasm. State aid exists, but it's complicated, slow, and often too late. There aren't enough shelters to accommodate everyone in need. Many have to choose between waiting in long lines in uncertainty or sleeping in the open. On top of that, they also face social discrimination, distrustful stares, rough treatment, and even forced evictions by authorities tasked with maintaining the face of the city. Munich doesn't like to be seen as a slum. So the slums have to be hidden, marginalized, banished far from the city center so they don't spoil the view. Ironically, this is happening in a city with one of the best social welfare systems in the world. But the system isn't perfect. It has loopholes, and that's where thousands of people are trapped, without a voice, without protection. They're not ghosts. They're real. They're part of the city. And as long as they're ignored, Munich can never be truly just or truly humane. When night falls and the city lights begin to dim, Munich changes its face. The city that appears orderly and clean during the day begins to reveal another side, a world that operates beneath the surface. Not in official records, not in government statistics, but real and growing in silence. Behind the glitz of shopping malls and luxury restaurants, an underworld network runs an invisible business. Drug trafficking, illegal prostitution, and money laundering are not just stories from crime movies. In Munich, they are real and more complex than you might think. Underground train stations, dark alleys around the Bahnhofviertel district, and abandoned buildings serve as meeting points for secret transactions. In the shadow of the law, organized gangs run their operations. These are not ordinary street thugs. They are syndicates with well-structured structures, sophisticated technology, and international connections. Prostitution, although legal in most parts of Germany, still leaves room for exploitation. In Munich, many sex workers come from Eastern Europe, promised jobs and security. but end up in the hands of pimps who confiscate their passports and deprive them of their freedom. In hidden spaces, human rights are traded silently. The drug trade is also the lifeblood of the city's criminal underworld. Synthetic drugs, cocaine, and even heroin infiltrate every level of society. Ironically, customers are not only from marginalized groups, but also young elites who lead double lives, professionals by day, consumers by night. And all this does not happen without supervision. Sometimes the authorities turn a blind eye, or even more painfully, get involved in it. A shadow system that runs side by side with the official system, covering each other up, needing each other. Munich, a city that appears sterile and orderly to the outside eye, hides a dark reality that is not widely known. Its underground world is a reflection of the failure of the system, when inequality, greed, and legal neglect create dark spaces untouched by light. Because in truth, a city cannot only be measured by what is visible, but also by what is hidden. Munich, like many large European cities, has become a new home for waves of immigrants from all over the world. From the late 20th century to the present day, thousands of people have come to the city with hope, fleeing war, poverty, or oppression in their homelands. From Turkish families arriving in the Gastarbeiter era to Syrian refugees fleeing the destruction of Aleppo, Munich has become a symbol of new opportunities. But the reality is often far from rosy. For many immigrants, Munich is not a place of warm welcome, but a long and grueling ordeal. They find themselves trapped in unwritten social strata, subtly but systematically excluded. A modern form of segregation, not through law, but through social, economic, and bureaucratic patterns that form invisible walls. In neighborhoods like Neuperlach, Hasenbergl, or Ramersdorf, immigrant populations are growing rapidly. Not because they choose to live there, but because there is nowhere else they can afford. These areas are slowly becoming ethnic enclaves, not out of cultural pride, but out of necessity. The schools in the region are often under-resourced, while the social mobility of children in them is very low. Discrimination also infiltrates various levels, from the suspicious job search process to the differential treatment in public service offices. A foreign-sounding surname can be enough reason to be passed over in the recruitment process. A different accent can make someone suspicious or underestimated. A proud cultural identity often becomes a social burden. Many say that Munich displays tolerance, but only to a certain extent. A tolerance that is symbolic, but not structural. The city can promote diversity in cultural festivals, but fails to ensure fair access to education, health, and economic opportunities. Worse still, in the shadow of the immigrant crisis and rising populism, extreme voices are re-emerging. The far right has found a new stage, using the issue of immigration as a political tool. Hate rhetoric that was once considered taboo is now being heard again, under the pretext of preserving German identity. Amidst these pressures, many immigrants live in a state of isolation, no longer part of their home country, but also not fully accepted by their destination country. They find themselves between two worlds, placeless citizens, living in a city they helped build but never really owned. This isn't just a story about Munich. It's a story about modern Europe, about how a city can seem open, while slowly closing its doors to those who need it most. In the eyes of many, Germany is a symbol of order. Law enforcement is seen as the bedrock of public safety. And Munich, with its modern, well-organized legal system, is often held up as an example of that success. But beneath the discipline and neat uniforms, there's another story that rarely comes to light. For many, the presence of police brings a sense of security. But for others, especially those with dark skin, immigrant backgrounds, or living in low-income areas, the same presence can mean the opposite: threat, suspicion, even fear. Cases of racial profiling have begun to emerge in public discussion. Many residents with immigrant backgrounds have reported being subjected to random checks at stations, parks, or on the streets, simply because of the color of their skin or their last name. Some have called it a subtle but systematic form of social control. While authorities have called it routine procedure, many feel it's not just policy, but legalized bias. The issue reached a head when a number of reports emerged highlighting police violence against non-whites. Some of the incidents were recorded and widely shared, sparking a wave of outrage and protest among migrant communities and human rights activists. Calls for transparency and accountability are beginning to resonate, not just in Munich, but across Germany. But in many cases, investigations are slow, secretive, or yield no results. Rarely are officers actually subject to serious sanctions. This raises a serious question. How deeply can legal protection penetrate a system that is supposed to be neutral, but too often defends itself? When fear of institutions replaces a sense of security, we are faced with a crisis of trust. And when some citizens feel unequal before the law itself begins to lose its sense of justice. Munich may be orderly on the surface, but the question is not whether the law is enforced, but to whom and how. Because justice that only applies to some is ultimately no justice at all. Munich is often called Germany's most prosperous city and one of the richest in Europe. Per capita income is high, public services are efficient, and the standard of living is impressive. But wealth, like light, does not always shine equally on every corner of the city. Behind the gleaming glass buildings and fancy cafes of the Schwabing or Maxvorstadt districts, there is another reality that is barely visible to tourists. The city secretly harbors stark social inequality, one that is becoming more pronounced every year. Rents continue to skyrocket, pushing middle and low-income families out of the city center into increasingly crowded, cramped suburbs. Tiny, exorbitantly priced apartments are the new norm. Even essential workers, such as teachers, nurses, or public transportation drivers, have a hard time finding affordable housing in the city where they work. On the other side, luxury apartment buildings stand empty, bought as investment assets by wealthy people from abroad. All that remains is a shadow of inequality that continues to grow amid the luxury. Munich has unofficially created economic zones. There is a Munich for the elite, and there is a Munich for those who are just getting by. In some neighborhoods, this divide even feels like a form of modern social apartheid. Those who can afford to stay, and those who are pushed out by an unfriendly system. Many city dwellers work 2 or 3 jobs just to survive the pressure of living costs. Ironically, the city that is considered the most livable by many international indices has become unlivable for some of its own residents. Children from low-income families grow up in cramped, unhealthy environments with little green space, while just a few kilometers away, other children play in private parks with all the facilities. Education has also been affected. Access to quality schools is still influenced by location and social background. Munich has become a perfect illustration of the reality of big cities in the world. When economic success is not balanced by the distribution of welfare, the city is only beautiful from a distance. Like a perfectly polished mirror, but starting to crack at the corners. And if left unchecked, these cracks will one day gape open, revealing the face of the city that has been hidden behind success statistics.